Okay, so this is going to be a video on my level 87 Fury Druid. Werewolf, that is. I think every Fury Druid is a werewolf by definition. Okay, good start. So some of you might have seen I made a video a while back about this character in kind of an intermediate stage, and I was just kind of talking about kind of the difficulties of the builds. Honestly, this build had one of the tougher like leveling experiences. 1 to 30 was especially tough because Fury is rather inexplicably, from my perspective, a level 30 skill. I don't know why Zeal is a level 12 skill with 1 prereq, and Fury is a level 30 skill that is also interruptible and has 3 prereqs. But whatever. And also mandates another one in lycanthropy if you're going to have your werewolf up for any length of time. Maybe it gives more attack and damage bonus at the end of the day. Maybe. Okay, fine. So let's just talk about the skills. So in that video, I was in the process of making like a pure Fury Druid, which would be max Werewolf, max Lycanthropy, max Fury, max Oak or Heart of Wolverine, probably Oak, and then like dump the rest into to Bear or whatever. But based on some of my own research and some of the comments I made, I decided to make the Armageddon Fury hybrid. There's actually a video up by this guy. This guy actually has pretty good videos. This guy SPF, which I believe stands for Single Player Forum, because he has some posts up on the Single Player Forum on I think it's Diablo2.net or whatever. Yeah, this guy SPF Grape. He's got some good vids up, man. So the build is, let's get into it. Max Lycanthropy, Max Fury, Elemental, Max Armageddon. This skill with 9 prereqs. I'll get into that later. So Max Armageddon, Max Molten Boulder, which you can do at level 87. And here you have some leeway. I put a total of 4 points. You have to put 1 in for the prereq, obviously, but I put 3 additional because each point in Fissure yields 2 more seconds for Armageddon. So once you get it up to, you get 4 points in this, you get it up to 18 seconds. That depends on what you want to do. You could put no points in this, but frankly, when you're kind of in the middle of a combat, when you're killing monsters, sometimes you get into like a middle of a fight and it's just not practical to cast your Armageddon over and over. So it's nice to have a little bit of length. I settled on 18 seconds. Obviously, it doesn't give a damage bonus, so you want to limit it, but it's kind of a convenience thing. And so what I'm doing with the rest of my points is I'm actually putting them into Werewolf. I'm doing that because I'm finding that attack rating is a bit of a problem for this build. If you, however, solve your attack rating problem, then, dump the rest of them into, Firestorm or whatever. Just some more damage for that. But that's the build. Pretty simple. What you do is you just cast your Armageddon and get your Feral Rage up, and then start Fury and shit. And that's it. And let's talk about the gear, because this is really the tough part to this build. So it's a build that requires a lot of resources, and all those resources basically go into your weapon, Doom. So I really, in the beginning, I kind of did not want to expend all these resources on this character, but I said fuck it. I just decided to go for it. I mean, what the hell, I actually found an Ohm on this character. I found a Cham on the last character I did. So, what the hell are runes for? Let's make some dope-ass rune words. And so I found this Superior Thresher, actually. I was very lucky in finding it. And yeah, so I made a Doom. And so, just check out this weapon. So So the reason that Doom, it's really is the build. This is the build. It's essential. And in fact, even if you don't bother with all the Armageddon and Elemental skills, I might argue that this is maybe the best weapon for a PVM Fury Druid. I mean, probably like, Breath of the Dying, whatever. And in fact, this is kind of up there in expense level. So maybe it's not the best, but it's a very good one, and I'll tell you why. So first of all, for this build, it's certainly the best because you have the level 18 Volcano that is synergized with your Armageddon and other fire skills, right? So that's kind of the basis. And then the reason this weapon is so good is because it really mixes. It has great offensive and defensive skills both. So you've got your Holy Freeze, which is just so this is the reason that this rune would exist. Holy Freeze Aura is so good, means you don't need a Holy Freeze Merc, and you could put a Might Aura on him. It saves you some damage. Plus, this weapon has huge damage. Plus, it has some pretty damn good increased attack speed, so your attack speed is actually really good, even though Fury doesn't use any off-weapon attack speed. Plus, you get 2 skills, which is very useful, especially considering the fact that you are an elemental hybrid, so you use those skills. And skills on a Fury Druid are actually pretty good when you consider, boost your life, boost the duration of your werewolf, boost your attack rating, boost your damage, boost your run walk, boost your lifesteal. I mean, so it's just huge. And I actually have, believe it or not, I have 4. I'm kind of low on like melee chimes, and I have been for a while. So I actually have 4 skillers, and honestly, they're good. It's not like it's not the equivalent of say, like a barb combat GC or like a a boson bow skill GC. I mean, those are just crap that you never want. But shapeshifters are actually pretty good. And the other great stats on this weapon are the open wounds, fine, but the deadly strike, very good. I'll talk about that more. But the reason that the Holy Freeze is so good is that Fury, as I've mentioned, is an interruptible attack. Well, if you slow down all your enemies, then let me just. I actually didn't mean to do that. If you slow down all your enemies, then you don't get hit as much, obviously. So you don't get interrupted as much, obviously, right? And so it's very useful. And so look at the way I wipe those guys out. Like, pretty good. My damage, 6.2k. When I have my Merc's aura, goes up to nearly 7.7, 7.6. So yeah, that's the weapon. This is the build. I mean, everything else you have like a lot of leeway on, but this is it. So let's move on. So gloves. So even though Fury doesn't use off-weapon IAS, I still have 2 off-weapon items that do give IAS. It's kind of disappointing, actually, in a way, that you would think that not needing the off-weapon IAS would like free you up, and yet I still found my way back to the same damn things I seem to use on every melee build because they're so good. Laying of Hands, the huge fire res, and you can see my fire res, I've compromised and I haven't maxed it out because I have 2.7k life, and when you have all that much life, you really don't need the fire resistance so much, and so I stopped at 50, which is very, it's definitely good enough, plus the damage to demons, and honestly, those 2 stats alone kind of make these worth it. But again, there are a lot of gloves you could use. You could use, I think a great gloves for this build would actually be Venom Grip. Those gloves that have 5% crushing blow and some life steal and some poison res, which is actually a little bit annoying on this character, but you'll see that in the bell run. Or, Drax, or what's the ones that have dual leech and cast the weakness? I forget. Anyway, so then High Lords, obviously super dope. I talked about how useful plus skills are. And it has 35 fire res, even though, you see I get exactly to 75. So even though you don't need the IES, and even though it's okay to compromise on your fire res, on light res, not so much. To me, just the way I think you kind of need max light res. It's more important than fire res, in my opinion. And then the Deadly Strike. So my deadly strike is 67% right now, 2/3, which is pretty dang good. So yeah, so the helm, I use Jalal's. It's kind of the only thing. I mean, the only two other helms that you might consider are Cerebus Bite and then Guillaume's for the crushing blow. But Cerebus Bite really, to my mind, doesn't hold a candle to Jalal's. It really has almost no advantage except a little more attack rating and some more lifesteal, which you don't need because you have Feral Rage. So it's just ridiculous. Jalal's is just super good. 30 faster hit recovery, which Guillaume's actually does have. 20 to strength, which is nice. I have a 15 all res duel, so I get 45 all res. And 5 mana after each kill, which is actually kind of a big deal. I don't have any mana steal, and your Armageddon does use 35 mana. Also, your Fury and your Feral Rage use, it's 4 compared to like say 2 for Zeal, but that actually, you use a little bit of mana is what I'm trying to say. So it's nice just to have that, just to negate any cost from your Fury and Feral Rage might impose, and you could actually gain a little bit. So that's nice. And the other thing that's nice about this as compared to Cerebus Bite is that Cerebus Bite will give you 4 to shapeshifting. But since you're a hybrid, the 2 to all druid and then 2 to shapeshifting is nice, so you get that bonus to your elemental skills as well. Let's move down. Belt for Dungos, super obvious, faster hit recovery, so between my armor and my helm, and I have a charm down here, I get to the 86% break point, which is nice because you get hit, you don't have a shield, it's nice to recover a little bit quicker. The vitality is big, I'll talk about that, but has a big life bonus once you cast Werewolf. And damage reduction, obvious, you need it. Armor, so I use Duress. Again, you have a lot of leeway on this. I mean, you could use some cheap-ass armors, like, well actually, first of all, Duress is pretty cheap, so there you go. But you could even use, like, Lionheart and Smoke, like, just anything that gives, like, maybe, a little bit of faster hit recovery and some good resistance, and that's it. Your defense is really never going to get that high. I mean, you could use like a Prudence, which is actually probably a little more expensive than a Duress, but it's single player. It's what you find, right? It's what you find. If you find a Mal on do a Prudence. Okay. But Duress, I don't know, it's just a super good armor. The reason I use it mostly is, first of all, the faster hit recovery is nice. Second of all, the crushing blow. And it gives a little bit of all resistance. To me, if this did not have all resistance, it would almost be crap. But Duress is just so great in that it gives you it just gives you a little bit of a lot of really good things. Not tons of crushing blow, but some. Not tons of resistance, but some. Some cold damage, not tons of enhanced damage, but a little bit. So it's just it's just so nice. It's really good armor. The only armor that I might consider using over this would be like a Chains of Honor, and then I would just take the hit on the faster hit recovery and go to a lesser breakpoint. But that's crazy expensive. But it would be nice because it might free up some of the stuff I do to get resistance, like it would free up the jewel I put in this helm. So that's the only thing, and it gives you skills and damage. So yeah, Chains of Honor is really, really good, and it's really the only thing I would pick over this. Gores speaks for itself, obvious. Ravenfrost, obvious, essential. And then my last bit of gear, which is actually pretty cool, is this rare ring, which is actually maybe one of the best rare rings I've found on single player. Attack rating, lifesteal, you do have Feral Rage, so you don't really need lifesteal from your gear, but I think your Feral Rage is not like always on, so it's really nice to have just some lifesteal somewhere on your actual gear. So, some good attack rating, some nice stat bonuses, it's comparable. It's comparable to a Ravenfrost. And then essentially, critically, lightning res. Very good, very good. And the other thing that's nice about Doom is it has a Hell rune in it. So you don't have to use too many stats. You don't have to use too many stats, and you can get your vitality decently up there. Anything else? Just kind of, I do supplement my resistance with some charms, some max AR charms in here. But yeah, so that's the skills and the gear. Let's just get into like some gameplay. Let me just recast this so I don't have to. That is the one thing about well, it's not. It's one thing among many. Um, the thing about Fury Druids is it does. If you play for a long time, it will occasionally happen to you that you just turn back into your human form, possibly in the middle of something. But usually, that's rarely tragic. It usually turns out okay. And yeah, as you can see, um, I actually have kind of a better opinion of Fury Druids now than I did when I made that first video. But there are some not so great things about them. So one reason to use the Armageddon is that it helps with physical immunes. Oh, here you get it. This is. Sometimes I get lucky on these rolls. So actually, you can see the fire damage actually does do help, like with those guys. Those ghosts especially don't have a lot of life. So when you're volcano cast, it actually does a pretty good job of getting rid of those. However, on physical immune monsters that have more life, and also when there's just a lot of physical immune monsters, fortunately those groups weren't too large, and there weren't any elite packs in that little on level 3, what you just saw there. But when there are, this character, despite all the fire damage, you can see my Armageddon it's not even 3k. And your Volcano is not that powerful. It's really, on most monsters, the Armageddon damage, the Volcano damage, is really more akin to, say, like casting Open Wounds or something. It's on most monsters, it's not that powerful, just not that powerful. So yeah, that's kind of one of the bad things about this build is just you invest like 50 points in the elemental tree, and you can't. It's not, your elemental tree is doing like maybe 10 to 15% of the work here. Mostly, it's your Fury, and so when you do run into those tough physical immunes, despite your 50 points in the elemental tree, what you're really relying on at the end of the day is your Merc's Reaper's Toll. That's your Merc. You have to put a Reaper's Toll on your Merc, I would say, for this build, because it's just not quite enough. Do we kill enough people, Bale? Is that it? You done? You clear it? But yeah, it's a pretty cool build, and you do have to. I haven't lost that much life, but Feral Rage really is a great skill, and you'll see if I start losing some life. It really is, the lifesteal bonus is really huge. It really is akin to like almost as good as say Life Tap. You kind of don't even, in my mind, you don't even really need Life Tap. You could use Dracules if you want, and those are nice in that they allow you to leech off certain characters you might not be able to otherwise. But I don't know, I think Feral Rage takes care of it for the most part. And look at my incredibly low poison resistance coming into play here. But then look at that life jump. You see that life jump? That's your Feral Rage. It's crazy. Like, you just heal right up. Yeah, so there are a lot of good things about this build. The damage especially. And the thing that's great about damage, one thing that's kind of too bad about my gear is I don't have a lot of Crushing Blow. But as your damage increases, Crushing Blow becomes kind of relatively less important. You could think of it, for instance, if you kill a minion in one shot, it doesn't matter how much Crushing Blow you have. So, when you have higher damage, there's a higher proportion of minions in the game that you kill in one shot. So it's not super necessary most of the time. Having said that, there are some minions, monsters, that do have a lot of life. And there are some monsters that this character really does have trouble with. For instance, I actually got a decently lucky roll there, but those minions of destruction really can fuck you up sometimes. I mean, if you get a bad roll, especially mana burn, I find so or extra fast. If minions of destruction roll extra fast, that's really tough. They can really. I actually do die sometimes on this build, because they interrupt, and it's just tough. It's just tough, and you have to kind of kite around, which usually I don't typically have to do on a melee build. But even with this level of gear, there are some minions you'll have to kite around. And that's kind of the price you pay when you use a two-hander, I guess. Um, so the thing, even some of the things that are nice about a Fury Druid, wow, that's actually pretty. I would say that it's kind of too bad I got like a easy run, but it kind of depends on how the minions roll. Sometimes Bale is like extra feisty, and he's like kind of tough to kill. Um, in this case, that went pretty easy. Um, but yeah, like I was saying, so there are certain minions, there are certain types of minions that it's really hard for this build to deal with, and I'll talk about what those are. So the first one would be minions that attack very fast, and those would be, sometimes an elite pack will roll extra fast, or for instance, if you're familiar with the monster Bloodlords, those guys are really tough. Sometimes I run into an elite pack of Bloodlords and I really just can't kill them. It's just ridiculous. Like I really cannot kill them and I have to run away, or die. For instance, on Bloodlords, for instance, your Holy Freeze doesn't work, and they have Frenzy as a skill, and they just come over and they just murder you like it's ridiculous, and you can't fight back because you just keep getting interrupted, and it's just super tough. I mentioned physical immunes are sometimes tough for this character. For the most part, you can deal with them. The other thing that's tough is mana burn. For whatever reason, it seems that Werewolf doesn't. If you are a Zealer and you get mana burn and you have zero mana, you will just revert to your normal attack. But that doesn't seem to happen on a Werewolf. So if you have your Fury up, you just stand there. You just stand there and you can't attack. I actually do not mean to keep uncasting my Werewolf. I should not keep my Armageddon right next to my Werewolf. But so you can't attack, and so that's why I actually have normal attack hotkeyed there. It's like just in case I need it. But yeah, I mean, it is pretty cool to have all the fireworks. That's a cool thing. That's a cool thing with this build. So those are kind of the categories of tough minions, is like when you have a particularly difficult physical immune, or like a mana burn, or like a tough roll on some elite packs. They could just really fuck you up. The other thing, your attack rating is not super high when you don't max Werewolf. That's just something you gotta deal with. 8.3k is like okay. It's okay. If I level up one or two more times, I would probably, what I have done in the last 3 levels, I've pumped Dex. I got my life to 2.7k. Something I often do in single player is I'll get my life to a certain point and then I'll just pump the rest into Dex, because attack rating is pretty consistently a tough thing. Yeah, anything else? Yeah, but your life is very important. This is a critical thing about Fury Druid. So your life really is important. When you use a two-hander and you have low defense, you take a lot of damage, and you have probably not great resistance. So you take a lot of damage, and Feral Rage does help with that. But if you are ever in a situation where you're not able to consistently leech, like for instance you've been mana burned, like for instance you keep getting interrupted, then you're taking tons of damage and not leeching, and you're pretty much just fucked in a hurry, So Fury Druids just have kind of a different survivability model to a Zealer. So, a Zealer will have max block, probably some pretty good resistance, probably some pretty good defense. And so you have kind of you take on not that much damage, but also your leech is a little bit limited unless you have life tap, and then it's just like ridiculous, and you can survive anything. It's almost broken, but other than that, so it's kind of a different model. Fury Druids, I mean, you're even with the crappiest gear, you're just given this skill that will allow you to leech hugely, but the cost of that is you're going to take more damage. So obviously the Fury Druid survivability model is riskier, as you can just tell. Just thinking about it. But having said that, it is a pretty cool build. One thing that's really nice about this build is actually the run walk, which you don't think about, but it really is the high life and the run walk and the high damage. It really does make you like a pretty potent. It makes you a pretty like potent killer. I gotta say. So if you have like if you have good gear, like equivalent levels of gear, I would say you're probably running through the game pretty fast. Maybe faster than a Sealer would. You're probably putting out more damage. So that's actually really nice. You really can storm through the game at certain points when you're geared up. But so it really is nice. So the Fury Druid really does have kind of its own thing. It's not just a crappy Zealer, as I sort of thought at first, as was my first impression. So overall, yeah, I would say pretty cool build. I don't have a CTA, and I do have a demon limb, but I don't have the strength for it, so I would have to like put on these gloves that I found but I don't know, I'm just too lazy to do it all the time, so I'm trying to pump up my attack rating otherwise. Besides that, geez, okay, I think that's everything I have to say about the build, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I would recommend it. Again, a lot of leeway on different pieces of gear, although Doom. I mean, what the fuck are you going to do? I don't know if you could really make an elemental Fury Druid without Doom. You could definitely make a pure Fury Druid with Doom without all the elemental shit. That would be super awesome. But, and maybe even better. So yeah, so mixed. I would say the build, it's kind of mixed. You invest so many points in this and it kind of doesn't have a huge payoff. But it's there in certain situations when you kind of need it and you don't have a lot of other options as a Fury Druid. So, yeah. So it's there. So that's nice. Anything else? No, I think that's it. Alright. Catch you guys later. Thanks.